Good afternoon and welcome to our How to Efficiently webinar series. Today we are going to talk about how to create a rolling forecast. Now, Stefano, can you please give me the control? I'm not sure if it's working.
Okay.
Oh, now it's working. I'm Daniel Potocznik. I'm partner and CFO at CRMT. And together with me is Stefano Soma, Senior Technology Sales Support Specialist from Wolters Kluwer. And today we will be walking you through this scenario. So if you have any questions, you can post your questions down below. There is a Q&A button, and we will try to answer those at the end of the presentation. Now, I invite you to sit back and relax and enjoy as we walk you through the presentation. So the purpose of this whole webinar series is to make your planning, budgeting, and forecasting process as smooth as possible and as efficient as possible. And we will walk you through these 15 minutes webinars throughout the course of the next weeks. So today, couple of, I would say, background on budgeting, forecasting, and rolling forecasting. So when we are talking about budget, so this is the abbreviation BGD, we are talking usually about the planning for the fiscal year. So for the most companies, this is the period from January to December of the next year. When we're talking about forecasting, we are usually talking about forecasting the rest of the year. So for example, here is 3 plus 9, so that means 3 months actuals plus 9 months forecast, or 6 plus 6, or 9 plus 3. This is the other term that you need to be aware of. The third one is the rolling forecast. So here we are forecasting usually the next 12 months, either 12 months, either maybe 18 months. Some companies do it like also for 24 months. And if we're talking about this forecasting from, for example, from April 22 until March 23. I tried to explain this also in the graph. So these are also the colors that are usually used associated to those terms. So budgeting is usually presented in the blue line. So here in this example, we have a budget from January until December of 2022. And we have the actuals for the first 3 months. So it's represented by the black color. Then we have a forecast until the end of the year. So 9 months from April until December. The forecast is presented in gray color. And then we have a rolling forecast for the next 12 months. So the rolling forecast is presented with the green color here. When doing forecasting, we have we have two different logics that are most important ones that I would like to share with you today. So the first one is that we are following the target. So we set the target with the budget, and we are now following the target. We sometimes refer to this option also as a hold the annual total. So we want to hold the final number. Usually we use this approach when we are below the target. Why? Because we want to answer the question, how much we need to do to reach the target. So we are below the target, and how much we need to do in order to achieve that target. The other logic, or the other option when doing the forecast, is following the trend. So sometimes also referred to as hold to the year. With that, or we usually use this one when we are above the target and we are answering the question, where will we end up if we continue with this pace? I will try to explain this also in the picture. So for example, here we have in blue our budget figures. The first row represents how it's called dynamicity of our budget. Then the second one is cumulative, because when tracking those numbers, it's much easier to use cumulative numbers. And then we have in black our actuals, so the month to month, and then the cumulative numbers. And then we have prepared both scenarios. So the first one, target, is a light gray, and the second one, trend, is a dark gray. So if you see at the end, the final column with the total, our budget is 2037. And our first forecast, where we focus on the target, is the same. But the forecasting numbers for month 10, 11, and 12 differ from the budget. Differ because we were doing either better or worse than the budget. And the second forecast, it's a linear trend. The numbers here are, so the total here is above our target, and the numbers here are prepared with this predictive engine, I would say. So I mentioned that it's easier to, so, and yes, of course, the A is the first target and the B is the second target or the forecast. It's easier to track the numbers when presenting the cumulative values on the graph. So here we have the blue line on top is our annual budget. Then we have our black bars from 1 until 9. These represent the actuals of our first 9 months. Then we have the blue ones, which represent the monthly or the cumulative budget for the whole year. And then in the end, for the month 10, 11, and 12, we have both options of the forecast, light gray and dark gray. If I show this, something not working, just a second. Yeah, here you can see the difference. If we are using the target, so we are at the point between the 9th and the 10th month, where the red line represents the point in time as of right now. And if we take, if we look at the difference marked A, this is the difference between the cumulative value at the end of actuals towards our target, our budget. And then we have with a B, our following the trend forecast, which is much higher than our initial target it was. So this is the difference between the two approaches. Then we have also a rolling forecast, which usually is following the trend from the past and predict the future. Usually it's the 12 months forecasting based on either 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even 9 months of historical data. What's important with the rolling forecast is that the forecast moves from 1 month at a time for 1 month. So each time there is a window of 12 months that we are moving month to month. I tried to represent this in the following graph. So here we have our budget from January until December of 2022. We have actuals for the first 4 months. And now we are preparing a rolling forecast for the next 12 months from May 22 until April 23. Moving on. Oh, sorry, I skipped this one. So when defining or when preparing the forecast model, first we have to define or select the model. Either we are talking about selecting one of the predefined 12 months rolling forecasts. It depends, or in this case, we can select both, select this rolling forecast based on how much history does it consider for the calculation, or we can select the HOAT, the annual total, or HOAT to the year. Then we need to define the parameters for preparing the rolling forecast. We have to select which is the scenario of the actuals, which is the scenario of the budget, which is the forecasting scenario, so the one that we are populating, And of course, we have to define which is the first period of our forecast. With this, we tell the system which is the month that we are starting our forecasting on. Here, I'm going to define just a couple of baselines for the demonstration that Stefano will show you later on. We have prepared in our example 2 forecasts. So the first one is hold to the year. Take a look at or pay attention to the total number for this one. And the second one is hold to the annual total. Take a look at the number and compare this one to the annual budget. Then we will show you the example of the report with the detailed sales, where we will have first 2 months of actuals and then 10 months of forecasted numbers. And then the second example will show you the rolling forecast, where we will have the first 3 months of actuals and then 12 months of the forecast. With that, Stefano, can you please take over and show us these examples?
Okay, good morning to everybody. I would like to start by explaining you how it is simple to run our forecasting models. So as you can see, we have some predefined models, but let's just take a look for instance, in this one to hold the annual total and to understand which are the parameters that the system is asking us. So we have to select our forecast scenario, and which is the first period for our forecasting. In our example, we are starting from March. And after that, we have to select which is the category that we want to use to collect this information for the forecasting. At the same way, we have to identify which are the 2 scenarios that we want to use for creating our forecasting. And then we'll start by selecting the actual scenario that we want to use. In this example is the 2022 actual, and the category node as well. This is an important aspect because you can create for the same forecasting scenario different rules filtering into the category nodes. Then we'll move to by selecting the budget scenario, and at the same way, which is the node that we want to use for planning our forecasting related to the budget scenario. After that, we run the elaboration. Let's take a look on the results that we can achieve. We just prepared 2 kind of reporting. So as you can see here, we are collecting our forecasting for our sales. We have different kind of product in this example for one of our customer. And then let's take a look into our 2 kind of forecasting scenario. So into our forecast online, we are hold the total annual. So the final amount is the same that we have into our budget. On the other hand, into our forecasting version 1, we are assuming to have a different final amount. And of course, we are retrieving this information starting to have the same amount in all of those that we have into the actuals one. This is a preceding forecasting. Of course, we can change the amount and change, I would say, the final results that we can collect. This is some suggestion that the system is able to give you, but of course, this is something that you can also override. In this example, we are running a 2+10 forecasting scenario, but now let's take a look into our rolling forecasting scenario. In this other example, we are starting our forecasting from April. So as you can see, we have the same amount for the actuals as well into the forecasting version 1 and version 2. And after that, we can move to understand which will be the impact that we can achieve into the 12 month starting from April until the March of the next year. As well, in this example, we can also change the final amount or the amount for each period that we have into our planning process.
Okay, Stefano,
yeah,
thank you very much.
Let me go back into the presentation. Let's start.
Okay, thank you. So the bottom line of the rolling forecasting exercise is that it's really complex to use, but can bring a lot of value to the customer. So first of all, what we achieve is a faster response to changes and opportunities. So we are getting insight more into the future, meaning we are always looking far ahead. We're not focusing on this year's results, but we are focusing on long-term growth. And sometimes we also say that it's not about setting the target, but it's about setting the route and following that route. Just a second, something is not working. Yeah, when creating a rolling forecast, there are a couple of things you need to consider. So the higher the market volatility, so many changes on the market on the outside, the shorter the interval should be for the rolling forecast. The enablement or starting a rolling forecast usually requires a change in perspective from the time perspective. So how much time we are considering in preparing the rolling forecast. And it requires organizational changes. If the budgeting exercise takes once a year, the rolling forecast is an exercise you need to do each month. So that means it has to be really short and really efficient. And of course, a specialized tool here is a must. Why? Because of the preceded data. This is something that the system calculates based on your historical data and prepares in advance for you. So you can just accept or you can make some changes as Stefano showed us. And this is the example between the differences if we are forecasting until the end of the year or if you're rolling forecasting for the next 12 months. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And also, I invite you for the next webinar next week, where we will talk about how to prepare a step-down cost allocation. If you want to see the previous recordings of our webinars, I invite you to go to our website, the landing page of the webinar series, and on the second or the bottom part of the screen, you will see the links to the previous webinars. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you.